Good evening. A workshop meeting of the Board of Trustees of Socorro Independent School District will be held today, September 26th. The time is 5:31. I officially call this meeting to order. We do have established a quorum. If you can please join me with Pledge of Allegiance. Ready? Begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. You may be seated. So there's no public comment at this time, so we will continue with our board workshop. Presenter, Mr. Casey.
Dr. Carmen, do you want
Did you want to say?
to kick us off?
If you want to, go ahead. Yes.
All right. So we have engaged with Moat Casey to jump into a 5-year strategic planning process. They have met initially with myself and our deputies. Several steps involved here, meetings with the board, meeting tomorrow with our cabinet. Of course, tomorrow evening we're meeting with the full board, cabinet, and your selected community members. The idea is to come up with a good, solid plan for the next 5 years with checkpoints along the way to hold us accountable as a district to make sure we're progressing as we should be progressing. With that in mind, we wanted the best, so we brought in Moat Casey. They have a great track record, both with finance and strategic planning. So with that, Dr. Gilcrease, are you leading the way?
I'll kick us off. Thank you so much. So we're going to cover a lot of ground in the next 2 days, and we're going to make you tired. That's our whole goal. Is we're gonna cover some things, and tomorrow night, I'm going to tell you this: tomorrow night with the community is usually a very special night. So I hope you all plan to attend that as well. As we started to get ready for tonight, I was actually on the plane here. I was reading this issue of Harvard Business Review, and it said, "What kind of organization are you?" And they said there's 4 types. The first one is an organization in search of focus, and the questions are: your team's uncertain about where you're headed? Is there an ongoing debate about the direction? Do your efforts feel disjointed? The second kind is what's called stuck and skeptical. Do new ideas get stuck where they originate? Do people across the organization feel disconnected? Do results take longer than they should? The third is aligned but constrained. You got everything moving in the right way, but you feel like you're moving through mud. Then the last one is struggling to keep up. Are your teams weary? Do you seem to be losing the battle for energy? Are you slow to make decisions and adapt your approaches as conditions change? So what we're going to do in the course of the next, through this whole process, is we're going to kind of identify where you are in one of those, and then build a plan to address those things. So to get started, we're going to talk about narrowing your focus, aligning all your services and all that. And to do that, Dr. Gibson.
So thank you, Mr. Minion, trustees, and Dr. Carmen for the opportunity to be here. It's really good to see you and to be out of the part of Texas humidity that I currently live in. I just couldn't figure out this morning when I woke up what was different, and then I realized I wasn't sweating already at 5 in the morning. It was a beautiful morning, by the way. And I was actually going to get on the treadmill in the hotel, and I opted to just take off on a walk jog towards the rising sun, which was just beautiful coming up over the mountain. So in the spirit of beginning with the end in mind, Dr. Carmen did a good job of saying this, and we're going to look at a few handouts here in just a second, just to help guide some of our thinking. But at the end of 6 to 8 meetings, each of them 2 to 3 hours in length, built one building upon another, the product at the very end of it is a strategic plan. There's a continuous improvement tool called an is not. So if you can describe what something is not, sometimes that helps you know what it is. So I'm going to start with what your strategic plan will not be, if that's fair enough. So it will not be 100 and something slide PowerPoint on the website 10 clicks deep. that no one references. It will not be that. Now, if you choose to put it in the form of a PowerPoint and put it on the website, we're not opposed to that, but that's not our final product. And it will not be what we refer to as the SPOT, which is the strategic plan on the shelf. So, you know, someone comes in and says, hey, where's our strategic plan? Oh, I don't know, hold on a second, we'll find it. It's right there, fourth up, right above all those books, you know, and you go get it, and usually the telltale sign is you dust it off, you know, real good, like no one's actually looked at this. So that's what it is not going to be. So if we do this correctly, we narrow the focus, we get clarity about our strategic objectives and how those objectives align to our strategic actions, and then how we measure those actions along the way, or leading indicators, and then how we measure those objectives and actions at the end of the year. It's our hope and desire that in order to make this like a living, breathing, viable document that the board and superintendent consider at a later date, not during this trip or the next one, but what we like to refer to as an operational rhythm of where the senior leader team and the board build out a cadence of the scorecard. We're going to start saying scorecard, and when we say scorecard, we mean your strategic plan. But you go over a small portion of the scorecard, perhaps at each board meeting or once a quarter or some cadence, and you don't try to go through the whole thing all at once. It's a lot to try to do all at one time, but you have a rhythm of when you go through it, so that at the very least you've gone through the scorecard one full time in the fall and one full time in the spring. Then in the summer, you know, your lagging data as opposed to leading data is coming in. And so then you can have a report on all of your lagging indicators, or your summative indicators, or your outcome indicators, or your year-end indicators, whichever term you want to use. So that's the process that that's beginning with the end in mind. We're starting way back at the front end of this right now. None of that I just described will be built out, or we won't even try to make a speculation at what needs to go on that until we hear from you today, until we hear from your senior leader team tomorrow, and until we hear from your community tomorrow night. And then and only then do we feel like we're prepared to start trying to lay out what the vision could perhaps be. There's a couple of concepts that the board probably needs to like get your head around and let us know if we're headed in the right direction. But one of the primary concepts with this is that we start tonight with listening to the board, and then we start tomorrow with listening to the senior leader team, and then we start tomorrow night with listening to the community. But your senior leader team or your cabinet, those are the trained professional educators. Like, that's their role. And we're going to talk in a little bit about the strategic role versus the tactical role. So to that end, we believe strongly that we need to listen with a critical ear to the board at the first meeting, and listen to the community, and then that senior leader team needs to build the first draft of the strategic objectives with the superintendent and us working together, and then that draft comes back to the board for like a value add. Question, answer, did we get it about right? Did we, you know, like, does this feel like we've addressed the community's needs, and does this feel like we've address the board's needs? So that's the process. Now, I guess the clarity, Mr. Mania, that I'm, you know, thinking about is just that comfort with the board handing it off to the senior leader team to develop the first draft, knowing that they're bringing that draft back to the board. So everybody good with that concept, because that's kind of the way we've structured the meetings. Most boards are just like, yep, all you educator folks with all your EduSpeak, y'all get in a room and get all this worded and get it back to us. The other big premise is, and I say this with all sincerity and all respect for any group that does any training with school boards, you know, all over our nation. You know, you hear, trustees, that sometimes in trainings, y'all just got back from TASB conference, maybe you went to a session and someone said, here's the line, you know, like, don't go below the line, or stay out of the weeds, or, you know, pick any number of words that, so let's just, for the sake of tonight's introductions use the stay out of the weeds. So first of all, we don't think that the district is I'm going to just use the metaphor, okay? So I'm using that metaphor or analogy. We don't think the district is intentionally growing weeds. So we want everybody to stay out of the weeds. We want to forget about the weeds. We're trying to grow something, you know, like intentional. So it's not, so weeds are not even part of the conversation with us. We're trying to grow something beneficial. So we actually believe that the board does need to stay in the board's role and in the strategic role. But we also believe that the senior leader team owes it to the board to give clarity about reports about how the strategic actions are going that are actually below the board's purview, if you will. But to ask board members in this day and time to just, you know, do the job or do the role that you've been assigned to do without data and information and clarity about how things are going, we believe is just naive. So we're not asking the senior leader team to develop reports on every single thing that they do. That would be impossible, but on the most important things that they do to move the strategic plan forward, if that makes sense. That's the operational rhythm that we're talking about. You have a packet, and I think that they may be clipped together. You may want to remove the clip. There's our agenda. You can set it to the side, and Buck and I will do our best to try to follow it, although sometimes we struggle. And tonight we have Dr. Tony Reisterwood with us also. She's going to be assisting at different parts of it, and I think several of you know Dr. Jody Duran, she's the better half of someone you know, I think. And I work with Jody in another capacity, and someone the other day, I said, hey, I work with Jody Duran, and he said, I know Jody Duran. No one works with Jody Duran. You work for Jody Duran. So, and I accepted that. So I'm happy to work for Jody Duran. But just two quick things in introduction, and then and this is for your agenda, and then 3 pages back. And you can just set those 4 pages, your first 4 pages, set them to the side. And then there's a document that looks like this. So it's the 3 essential roles, and again, if you don't mind, just setting the first 4 pages to the side for to the side for just a second. So yeah, 3 essential roles, and then actually the next document, the aligned arrows. This is our introduction, and then we're going to take a quick assessment. We're going to do probably the worst thing. We're going to take a pop test, and it's not a good idea, but there's a reason for the way we're going to do it. So when we look at the 3 essential roles, or one of the reasons that we share this model with the board is that we want it to be real clear that everything we're doing will never deviate from this structure. And so the board's role is, in our opinion, the strategic role. So, and we put the superintendent in there with you. You know, here's the team of 8, you know, that sits together on a consistent basis. So it's the big picture. It's the view from 50,000 feet, overlooks the entire system, sees how all the parts relate together, focuses on the community's needs, that you were elected from the community. So you're the representative from the community. Usually the board looks to 3 to 5 year horizon. We think strategic plans right now are ideally about 4 years in length. This would not be the 22-23 because this year is underway. So by my thinking, this would be the 23-24, 24-25, 25-26, 26-27 strategic plan. The board, or the strategic role of the board, provides the overall structure for the goals. They set clear targets for the goals. And then I love the last bullet, you constantly work on the system. Like this is the team that works on it. Now look, if you look down at the tactical role or the operational role, they work in the system, right? So board works on the system, the leadership team and the front line, they work in the system. So I just think that's a really important thing to note, that the board's role is to work on it. And notice that the superintendent is in the sidebar between the strategic and the tactical role, because the superintendent is almost like the liaison with the senior leader team and with other department chairs, if you will, and the campus principals, who are the tactical role. So the tactical role is the superintendent and the leadership team. They see the view from 10,000 feet. They overlook the schools and departments. They focus on working directly with customers. They look out 1 to 2 years instead of the 5 years, 3 to 5 years from the board. They provide structure at the campus. They create plans that lead to improvement. And then depending on the situation, the person may be working on the system or in the system. I'm assuming that these tables and chairs right here are cabinet members at a traditional board meeting. Okay, if they're sitting there, guess what? They're working on the system with the board, right? They're at a board meeting and they're working on the system. And then when we send them back to their day jobs, now they're in the system, like they're doing the work in the system. And then the third role is the operational role. This is the rest of everybody that works in the organization that works directly with our front line. Teachers, bus drivers, cafeteria workers, maintenance. I mean, you all know the drill. So it's just the rest of the employees, and they're directly working face to face with our frontline customers. Now, I mentioned earlier, if we do this right, you know, I did the is not. So I want to tell you a quick story, and then we'll move past the introduction. But if you think about from the strategic role to the tactical role to the operational role, so I want to think about like NASA and trying to put a man on the moon. So the strategic role of that's coming from somewhere in the White House, or if there's military components to it, you know, the generals are working with NASA. So they're working on, well, it would be similar to President Kennedy saying, you know, in 10 years we'll put a man on the moon. So that came from the strategic role, right? And then the tactical team had to go figure out, how the heck do we put a man on the moon, right? Because that just became the goal of our country. And then the front line workers are the ones that are turning the wrenches, building the fuselage for the, y'all get the idea. So that's that concept. So and one of my favorite stories or anecdotes for when we're talking about from the strategic role to the operational role is a custodian working at NASA. So actually 3 custodians. So you got 3 custodians that were interviewed, you know, about the time that we were putting a man on the moon for the first time. So the first custodian, the reporter said, "What do you do?" And that custodian said, "I clean up after all these slobs." Okay, so that's not the best thing you want going out on, you know, the news. You know. So the second one said, I really try to clean up after the engineers so they can do their job. Okay, much better answer. You know, we like that answer. But then they went to the third custodian and said, "What do you do?" And he said, "I'm putting a man on the moon." Okay, so if we do this right, we have enough clarity for frontline employees, bus drivers, child nutrition, teachers, to see where we're trying to head, that they feel like they're part of whatever that big strategic objective is that we're setting. That's our personal charge, to try to make it happen that way. We want frontline employees to be able to look at the strategic plan and see, okay, I got a part of that, I got a part of that. We want it to be that simple, that clear, that direct if we do it right. All right, fair enough. Anything to add, Dr. Gilcrease? Okay. So then one quick overview. The next page is aligning arrows. You want to talk about that, or you want me to keep rolling? Okay, I got permission to keep rolling. So you can think about this in any way that you want to. So the arrows pointing in different directions could be trustees. It could be the different departments of the district. It could be different employees on a given campus. So one thing that we want to make sure that that trustees that you're aware of is that nowhere on this page does it indicate that any one of those arrows is acting out of maliciousness or mean intent or whatever. They're doing what they think they should be doing. It's just that they aren't aligned with everyone else. So one arrow's, and Dr. Carmen, you've been a superintendent, a couple of districts, does aligned arrows hard to achieve, just generally speaking, like with your departments that are working for you? Is that a fair statement?
I believe so, yes,
Yeah.
sir.
And I think Buck and I feel like we worked a whole career and we might have gotten a district, to somewhere emerging from 2 to 3, right? Like it just, as hard as we were trying to get to all these arrows perfectly aligned, you just work and work and work. And I was fortunate enough in my last district to be there 11 years. So for 11 years, we worked on aligning arrows. And, I felt like we might have been emerging from 3 to 4. There might have been some bright spots where we might have thought, for a moment there, it felt like stage 4. But there was always just a little bit of room to grow. But do you see how that it's really important, especially with the increased competition for public education coming at us, that we get our internal systems completely aligned and just one helping the other. And I know y'all have probably seen the silly video, and I'm not much to get choked up. I'm kind of not that guy, but it still chokes me up just to think about geese flying in the V formation, what they're doing. They're drafting off of one another, and the one that's out in the front's the one that's pushing the most air. And as soon as that one's out of wind, they float back around and someone takes the lead. So when you look at that stage 4 and think about, the geese in the drafting formation, yes, we have to have hierarchy, we have to have an org chart, we have to have structure, but then when it comes time, to get the thing up off the ground, it's all of us, and all of us can be drafting off of each other, and we want that kind of, synergy and helping one another from one department to another to make sure that we're getting the job done. So that's also aligning the arrows in the district is a big piece of what we're doing. So let me pause, Mr. Mannion, and see if there's any questions about these two models before we do the next thing. Everybody good? I must have done a really good job on that buck because there are no questions. Okay, so now the pages that you turned over earlier, the second, third, and fourth page, and Mr. President, we know we run the risk of not starting off on a great footing by giving you a pop test right when we sit down, but we think it's prudent to capture this data before we talk a lot more. So there's a primer that's there, and it says Step 2 Primer, Team Trust Self-Analysis. We don't need to look at that right now, but you can have that for later if you want to know exactly what we did. But we would like you to find the Team Trust Self-Analysis. It's front and back, questions A1, A2, A3 through D7. Team Trust Self-Analysis. And then Good Governance Inventory should be the next page in your packet. Team Trust, Self-Analysis, and Good Governance Inventory. All right, really important, a couple of really important things, and then we're just going to let you quickly just give us a check mark in it. Now, I would like for you to, up in the upper right-hand corner of each one of them, to just make some symbol or a number or something. We do want this to be anonymous, but we want to hand it back to its owner here in just a little bit so you have your copy back. So put some symbol in the upper right-hand corner real quickly, if you don't mind. Then let's talk about Team Trust Self-Analysis first. So, and Dr. Carmen and Mr. Mannion, this is a question really for the full board. So this says we. If Dr. Carmen's been here for less than a year, we can decide if we want the we to be just the board or if we want the we in this to be the board and the superintendent. Does that make sense? Like you all can decide who the we is.
Oh, we're a team of 8. I think we should be
Okay.
all of us.
All right, very good. And we're going to be -1, but if we could capture that, we can share what we know as of tonight, and then we can just redo it with the additional one later. Is that fair enough? But I think we've got enough here. Let's capture what we have, and then again, we'll add, Dr. Carmen, if you can collect one more for us, then we'll, even if he or she, I'm sorry, I can't see, wants to take a picture of it when they complete it, and you just share my cell number, just let them text it to me. They don't even have to tell me who it is. I'll figure it out, that it'll be the only Team Trust Self-Analysis coming in via text. But then I'll aggregate that into the results. So here are your instructions. Do not overthink this. Go at it with your heart. and just go with your gut feeling, like what's your gut response? There's always the safety valve of no opinion on the 5-point Likert scale, right? That's in the middle. I'm going to ask you, if you do not have strong feelings, that's what no opinion is for. But if you have strong feelings one way or the other, you go away from the midpoint on the Likert scale, the stronger you feel. So 1 is strongly disagree, 5 is strongly agree. Mid is neutral, and then you're moving away right to left depending on disagree. All right, fair enough. On that, no right or wrong answers. If you will, go ahead and look over at the good governance inventory. We're not doing that with a 5-point Likert scale. We're doing that simply with yes, no, I don't know. Does that make sense? Same thing there. We'll get all 8 responses on that. If you don't know exactly what it's asking, I'm not saying that you should choose I don't know, but it seems like don't know would be the right answer. If you don't know exactly what it's asking, don't worry. If you don't know what it's asking, just say I don't know. All right, fair enough?
We is the team of 8.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
My Niners lost last night to
I was gonna say, I thought football's over for the week.
late tonight against New York. Should be a good game though. And then they don't have their quarterback. Probably gonna lose. He's all right. Who did?
Kansas State?
They upset Oklahoma. He did upset Boise State. That was a big one.
They're on 10 minutes.
Daniel, they can bring that in here, right? They can bring the Cowboy game in here, right?
On this screen. On this screen right here.
Wouldn't that be nice? That'd be nice. Take as much
Hey,
time
Michael,
as
did
you
win last
want.
night? Michael, did you win?
I did.
There's 12 of us left.
I know. Guess who I picked? The Eagles.
Big time. They won big time.
Never play survival with your heart.
Oh, against Washington, right?
They beat Washington.
Big time.
Gabby was mad at me. She says, "You pick someone over your team?" Like, yeah, I'm not
That's a
dumb.
game in a long time.
You know what they can do and what they can't.
Yeah, and about halftime, I was feeling very good about my
Did
decision.
you watch the
Minnesota
Dolphin
and the
game?
Chargers. Big Minnesota and the
saw the
Chargers.
highlights.
Minnesota barely
I
won.
was in there.
Chargers lost.
Quarterbacks are awesome.
All right, so I understand the pressure now to get us out quickly for the Cowboy game, so here we go.
I'm sorry, it was a bad call to have.
No,
on
it's all
Monday-
good. It's
Monday
all
Night
good.
Football,
Oh,
especially in Texas, right?
that's right, absolutely. So, we like to say this, two things. In the world, in education especially, we use the word "we" a lot. We're going to define "we," but when we say that it's not important that we think alike, but it is important that we think together, really focuses on this strategic team. You don't have to agree, folks, but you have to be able to think together for solutions to move the organization forward.
We had a trustee in another district the other night say, "We're unified, we're not uniform."
Oh,
It's pretty good.
Yeah.
Well, so we're unified, but we're not uniform. That doesn't mean we have to think exactly alike, but we are unified. I don't know. I'm thinking of getting a T-shirt made for them, but
I like that. The other thing is that board members we run into across the state are tired of being told what they can't do. Everywhere they go, you hear over and over, well, you can't do that. You can't do that. And so, the real point is that just because you're responsible, which you guys are, doesn't mean that it's your fault. More than likely, what happens is that your systems are not aligned. Your arrows aren't aligned. So let's get ready to understand what it is you can do. You can when you appreciate this from the strategic role, you're going to get some alignment, some clarity, some connection, and then lastly, some affirmation that flows throughout the system, all the way up and down. So here we get down to the definition of we. So we believe, this we sitting at the table over here believe that there's 4 we groups in every organization. The first is the organic one, and that is everybody that is a member of this school district. Students, staff, community, school board, everybody. Everybody, any and all stakeholders and well-intentioned parties. The second one, we then, is the strategic we, and we've said that. That's you sitting in this room, the board of trustees and the superintendent. The tactical we is the superintendent and senior leader, and then the operational we is the faculty, staff, and students. So when we began to think together, we've got to acknowledge that we may be doing the best we can right now, but I promise you most organizations know how to do it better. They just can't get there. So weariness for these is not solved by policy, it's solved by planning and implementation. So here's some of the things we're going to work on, especially with your community group. But the guiding principles for what we think as an organization have to be designed through the organic we, and it needs to include beliefs. And what we think is that the beliefs should center around 6 areas. What do you believe about students? What do you believe about parents? What do you believe about teachers? What do you believe about campus leaders? What do you believe about superintendent central office? And then lastly, what do you believe about the board of trustees? And out of those beliefs, we can check your vision and mission statements as they're written, or the beliefs may drive a rewrite of that. But we'll look and see.
And
go ahead.
Well, and Dr. Carmen, just to double check, we did decide that it's been 9 years since the previous strategic plan, I believe, or approximately.
I believe that's right, 2013?
Yeah, so it's a good time for it. Now, I see some sayings on the wall, and some of it painted on the walls outside in really big letters, so we're not here to say remove those words. If some of those are mottos or vision statements or mission, we'll probe that. But we'll go through the full belief setting and then double check that against those sayings. I would think that they would all line up, but I mean, again, we're trying to keep our mind open until we really listen to the community and do that piece of it. But we will tomorrow night be working on belief setting with the community. And if I may ask, will all 6 of you be able to be there tomorrow night, or do we have? We're going to. We would love for you to be there. We think it's really good. We're going to bring community members in, staff members, some students, and we're going to divide up into 6 different groups, maybe in this room, is that right? Yes. Yeah, in this room, and we're going to go to work on different belief statements. And it's a really, really good process, and it's a good opportunity for the board to just sit and listen, to the community.
So just some examples that we found across the the state, what a belief statement looks like. So students will be empowered to lead, succeed, and persevere. Faculty and staff shall be highly qualified, dedicated leaders with high moral character who inspire, motivate, and challenge our students. Parents and guardians will be informed, invited, involved partners. Principal and campus leaders build a highly effective and collaborative culture in which goals are clear. And so I won't keep reading those to you, but you see the direction that we're going then with your belief statements is to give definition that comes from the community. The community is going to help drive what these are. Again, to reiterate, tomorrow night is a really great night to build your organizational direction, because it's coming straight from your community. And guess your community may not all agree with each other either, right? So we're going to talk to them tomorrow night about, we don't have to think alike, but we do got to think together and have all aspects of the community involved. So it culminates then with the mission and vision. The reason why we start with beliefs is because most of the time your beliefs are your mission and vision are in your beliefs. You just got to pull them out. Well, if you really write down what you believe, then you got to pull them out. Here's where it really culminates, is in a scorecard. This is what your scorecard is going to look like at the end of this process.
Well, with all those boxes filled in.
Correct,
with-
yes. Well, it won't be this short, but you can see at the top, we're going to put those beliefs up there. We're going to put your vision and your mission, and then you're going to decide on your 4 perspectives. We're going to highly recommend those 4 perspectives. And then we're going to talk about the performance objectives within those. Your tactical team is going to lead that conversation to write those in. And that piece is the board's strategic plan. Went too fast. So we're at the column that says perspective, and then the column that says performance objective. All of that and your beliefs, vision, and mission will be adopted by the board.
I think that's a really important point to pause on. So you will not adopt column 3, column 4, and column 5. And the rationale for that is the senior leader team, and if we learned anything in the last 30 months is, and I hate to use the word pivot because it just became the most overused word, but that we learned that sometimes we do need to pivot in the middle of the year. And so the board is adopting the strategic objective, like the big direction of where we're heading, and not adopting the strategic action, because that's what the senior leader team builds out, supporting that strategic objective. Now, this is really, really important. But remember earlier, I said the senior leader team and the board are going to build a cadence of reporting. So the senior leader team is reporting to you on how those strategic actions, column 3, are going. Like, that's what the purpose of the reports. Column 4 are our leading measures, or how do we measure it along the way. Here's my most sophisticated answer on what the definition of a leading measure is. Usually lagging measures are annual, so a leading measure is less than annual. So it could be a week, it could be a month, it could be a quarter, but it's some check mark along the way. For example, we may look at a star result at the end of the year. So how do we know that we're getting towards that star goal? Well, y'all probably use some kind of interim assessment or NWEA or MAP or any number of those. So we'll get clarity with the board on how those assessments are used to check on traditionally BOI, beginning of year, EOI, end of year, and then MOI becomes really important the middle of the year. Like, how are we doing in the middle of the year? My wife says that I'm a scorecard nerd, so I just kind of start nerding out on this. So I'm going to stop, Buck, and let you.
Well, I think some of this is a little, we have a few more that kind of clarifies if there is any question. So if you look at your responsibilities in the line system, and I love that phrase there. There's a role for everybody, but everybody's not in every role. And if you want your organization to be successful, you have to live by that, right? So the organic, on that scorecard that we're talking about, the organic, your community, any and all interested stakeholders, will be responsible for the beliefs, mission, and vision, right? And then the strategic we is again responsible for your perspectives and then the performance objectives. The tactical we then comes up with the key strategic actions, the progress measures, and the long-term measures, the outcomes, inputs, outputs, and outcomes. We say this, and I don't mean it in any bad way, but in education, Dr. Carmen, we're really good at telling you what our inputs are, aren't we? You guys have probably heard presentations about this software and this program and this whatever multiple times, and it's going to change the world. But then they don't ever come tell you if it changed the world, right? Because we're not very good at that. And then we're gonna push it a little bit and force the hand that says you got to have these progress measures too, your outputs and your outcomes.
You usually put the inputs in the form of a PowerPoint presentation, and here we are with a PowerPoint presentation. I'm going to badmouth PowerPoint presentations, but if all you have in a PowerPoint if all you have in a presentation is a PowerPoint, then you have neither power nor a point. I mean, we've got to get to the measures, right? Like we've got to get it quantified eventually.
So there it is again, all put together. And again, Dr. Gibson's talked about this multiple times. You got to then have a cadence of accountability to not only you, the tactical team, your superintendent and the tactical team owe it to not only you, but also to the community to have a cadence of accountability. Here's what we said we're going to do for student achievement. Here's where we are in August. Here's where we are on perspective 2 in September. Here's where we are dealing with our community and stakeholders in October. And you just get into this cadence of understanding how you're accomplishing what you've written down in those goals, right? All right. So now, I know y'all sat there and you thought, well, those guys, those people that are leading this tonight are just going to talk through the whole thing and I don't have to do anything, and I got bad news for you. Now you have to talk. So we're going to ask you to do some thinking, and then we're going to go around and everybody's going to have input into this. When you think about your school district, when you think about your organization, when you think about your community, that's because you're really the heart and soul of a community. I don't know if you know that. The schools, I was in Alvin ISD when Harvey hit. When the water started rising, you know where the people went? Schools. To the schools. They didn't go to the city council. They didn't go to the fire department. They went to the school. And then our responsibility at that time was to, matter of fact, I gave the go-ahead at one of our schools to break the door down to get into the kitchen so we could start cooking food and feeding people. And that because the school is the heart of the community. So, and again, I'm going to say this because I get to say this, and if y'all get mad at me, I leave. But you guys are the heart of the community strategic direction. That's what they elected you here to be, right? And so if there's discord in the strategic team, everybody in the organization feels that. So as we move forward here, our sure.
So I think this will be
Oh, there was a back to it. Can you see it? Machine? Oh, sorry. That's right.
Okay. Now, we're going to give you about 3 minutes to write these down. You have to come up with only one in each area. But we're going to do what's called a SWOT analysis. I need you to tell me the greatest strength of the district, the greatest weakness of the district, the greatest opportunity of the district, and then the last is the biggest threat to the success of the district. Strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats. You can't have a list. This is one, not a litany, right? You got to have one single in each one of those.
So an opportunity can be a weakness or it can be a strength. The difference between a weakness and an opportunity, if you want to think about it as, is there just one thing that's out there that if we just get that one thing right, a lot of this other stuff will fall in place? That makes sense. That's what an opportunity is.
All right, we about there? Just before we start, in full transparency, I spent most of my teaching career at the 7th grade level, so I understand wait time, and I will use that to get you all to speak, so.
Texas history.
All right, who wants to go? What we'd like to do is everybody share a strength, everybody share a weakness, and so who wants to start with strengths?
I'll start. So you said just one, right?
Yeah, just your strength.
Everything I wrote down for strength, or just one item for strength?
Just one.
All right. What I wrote or included under strengths is the student energy, outcomes, and support of the different offerings from the district. Everything from, our standard courses to early college.
Just
to-
one. Just one.
It is. That's all the different programs.
No, that's a whole bunch of.
No, but so we have all this variety of programs, right? And I think the students are excited about it, and I think it's reflective in their participation in the outcomes. That's a strength.
Positive.
Just one.
Positive academic options for students.
That's good.
That's exactly what I said.
Yes.
Our staff.
Okay. You're talking everybody, right? When you say
From
staff.
top to bottom. Because we can't do what we do without them. And they come in, and it doesn't matter whether they're the custodian or a principal, they come in and give 100% every day, doing their best.
Almost the same thing, but I'm just gonna add that, I mean, it's taking care of our employees and taking care of our students. I mean, if we can do that, then it makes a more inviting, education for them.
I'm gonna say growth. We are a growing school district. We're exploding at the seams. Strength to us.
Absolutely.
I would say academic achievement, whether it's in our core area, what we do with our students in preparation for their graduation, in CTE, fine arts, athletics, the achievement of our students here is very high.
I think everything that was said is very encompassing. However, I think we're regarded as one of the best districts in the region. I think that's a strength.
Strong reputation.
That goes outside the region, by the way.
Yeah.
I want y'all to know
Yes,
that.
it does.
Well, I don't want to be too,
All the courses, all the opportunities that we have in all the high schools, especially the early college. That's one of the things I think that stands out.
Okay. All right, who wants to start with weakness?
I'll go. You can always just start with me.
Okay.
I think an obvious weakness is the board division. It is obvious in board meetings and through our votes.
I think a lot of it is funding. I think with fair funding across the state, even more opportunities that we could provide for our staff and our students.
I'm just gonna echo the same thing what Mr. Nakara said. I mean, at the end of the day, we're the leaders at the top, and everybody looks to us. And when you're in a leadership role, it affects everybody on down, so I agree, I mean.
And I think our biggest challenges right now in the whole district is employment. It's It's not as bad as it was before. It's getting better, but we are lacking a lot of employees.
I think one of our main weaknesses, which is funny because Mr. Mena mentioned as a strength, is our size and our growth. It presents many challenges in trying to get 48,000 students, 50 campuses, 7,000 employees, all moving in the same direction.
How many students do y'all growing every year? I know the answer, but I want you to say it.
It changed during COVID, but this year we're 600 plus over where we were last year at this time. And that was pretty consistent prior to 2019, prior to the pandemic.
So to put it another way, every Friday when you go home during the school year, when you come back on Monday, you need a classroom.
That's a good way to put it.
Yes, sir.
You ever thought about it that way?
No? And every year, pretty much a new school.
Yes. So, all right, weaknesses.
Not having equity across all areas of the district. That is something that's very obvious. Today I drove by the campus of Waco Elementary. I was in the area this morning and just looking at the kids playing and just the school and the environment there. And then if you go up north, they don't look the same. They look, there's a little disparity, and I think that's our responsibility to see if we can't make it where they're all playing on the same, being on the same playing field.
I think one of the greatest weaknesses is funding. Throughout the state, in El Paso, compared to other cities, is funding.
Okay, opportunities. What's hanging out there that we should go do?
I think COVID presented an unexpected opportunity. There was a lot of loss, learning loss, during our remote period. And I see that as an opportunity to help recover from that, to help our students advance to the levels we know where they can be, because we were performing there before, and I think we still have a lot of the right staff to do it. We just need to commit from the top that that's exactly what we want to do.
I know for Dr. Carmen and the tactical team, this is a weakness or a struggle for them, but I look at our growth as an opportunity because I see, small school districts aren't able to provide the, here we go, Daniel, endless opportunities that we're able to provide. And that growth has allowed us to have that versatility in what we can provide.
I think I'm just going to speak generally, though. 'Cause this encompasses a lot. But I think whatever situation you're in, there's always an opportunity to grow from it, to learn from it, to learn something new. COVID being an example. There was a lot of learning loss, and everybody had to think on their feet really quick. How are they going to teach? How are they going to learn? Funding. Funding's an issue. Okay, so this is an opportunity. How are we going to, with the funding that we do have, what are we going to do with it? How are we going to be smart with it? So just things like that. I look at it not as a bad thing or as a weakness. I just look at those things as an opportunity to grow from it.
And I'm going to piggyback off of Paulo because, opportunity usually knocks on everybody's doors. Whether you take advantage of it or not, it's really up to you. And we've taken advantage of a lot of opportunities here, to include bonds that we've passed, and we've built schools and got a new SAC going on. Those are all great opportunities. And I think that you hit it up. You hit them. You actually stole my question. Yeah.
I think we have a real opportunity for student choice. Historically, this district has done a great job at the high school level with all the programs we offer. Some have filtered down to middle school. We started this year with a couple of elementary academies, and I think the opportunity is there to expand those across our feeder patterns. And I think we can take the challenge of our size and our growth and turn that into an opportunity, because as we hopefully get community support to pass a bond and build new schools, we can strategically place those academies, whether they're elementary or they're school through middle schools, up through high school. We can use that as an opportunity to give our students more choice.
I think seizing on the growth of the district and using it to prepare for the future, not to get behind and playing catch-up later. We have to be progressive in the sense that over 20 years ago, El Paso ISD was one of the, obviously the top district in the region. They were the envy, I guess, if you would. And today, they're struggling. They're struggling I think they're closing, they're down to a little more than 80 campuses, and they're looking to start. Now they're downsizing it. And I think had they prepared, had they realized what they were doing back then, 20 years ago, they should have possibly put a strategic plan in place. And today we have that opportunity here to say, look, we're growing. We need to start looking to see what we have to do so we're not caught like they are today. Right now, they're struggling, they really are. I'm working in the district and I'm seeing a lot of these campuses, and it doesn't look good.
I think one opportunity, like Ms. Nagara said, is growth. But it's a double-edged sword. When you grow too fast, that might become a weakness, not a weakness, or it may become a strength, because you do get funding when you grow. And right now, we are going to become the largest district, but in a couple of years, we're going to be landlocked. And then Clinton will become the largest district. So that's one of our strengths, or one of the opportunity is growth. So that'll help us right now in the meantime.
Mr. Nara, do you mind repeating your opportunity? I got a text saying I interrupted those that were taking notes while you were speaking. Do you remember what you said?
No, sir. I said, can we go to the, let's go to the tape. Just kidding. I said recovery from COVID and remote learning.
Gotcha. Okay, that's it. Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Can I continue with threats?
Threats, yes.
Threats. The continued charter school expansion and their misinformation campaigns.
I have charter schools.
I can't just say one. I mean, it encompasses, when you talk about threats, I look at it many different ways. Will there be bullying in person, social media, drugs, those social emotional learning, active shooters. But when you look at all that, I think what Mr. Morales said as far as weaknesses that, that equity there, like at Waco, in the valley, that's where you start looking at stuff like that. That infrastructure that's there creates easier threats for schools like that. They don't have the same things that, so to speak, north of the freeway that they have. So there's not that equity there, and that's where threats can derive from. So
For me, it'll be another COVID or another closure of schools for whatever reason. I know Florida is going through a hurricane right now. We were supposed to go to the Cube. It's been canceled. Active shooters, like you said, charter schools, those are all threats to us.
Yeah, my top one was charter schools.
Curb it. Keeping politics out of the big picture, student achievement.
Charter schools.
We finished that, but you don't get off the hook that easy, so I'm going to come back around with a couple of questions. I heard that the vision, so we're going to probe it a little bit. Why'd you run for the board? Why did you choose to run for the school board?
Well, I chose to run for the school board because I think, and it sounds like a marketing campaign. Education is the foundation of the community. You know what I mean? When I was a kid in school, I could have taken the wrong path. That was easy. But I had teachers who, for some unknown reason, were invested in me. you know, and so they didn't let me stray. It's not that I didn't have the opportunities, it's just, you know, they wouldn't stop. And so I ended up on a better path. And so knowing that, I would like to make the same difference, you know, in this generation's life, to provide those opportunities and to make sure that the staff, the teachers, the district all have the right resources that are required to continue to deliver that like it was given to me. I think my educational background contributes to that, and it's my dislike of politics that, you know, I don't like seeing, you know, the games sometimes that are played when we watch the media and some of our political representatives say one thing and do another. You know, for me, politics don't belong on the school board. It's really very simple. We should always be doing the best that we can do to deliver to our students. And that should be our only focus in the decision, even though, you know, there's different maybe levels of the decision, but it's always, I think, really very simple. Does it benefit the students, yes or no?
Before I ran for the board, our district went through some tough times with a not so great superintendent and a not so great board. We had legal troubles and jail time. We had a brand new superintendent and the opportunity to progress our district, to do something good without personal agendas. I didn't decide to run for the board because I wanted to be a congressman or anything else. I wanted to make our district the best it could be, to provide for our students. And that was the only reason to do it.
Again, pretty much equity across the district, especially the older areas. Something that really struck home was, you know, the special education department. Sometimes I noticed that they were getting forgotten about, bilingual as well. And then just providing better opportunities for the students and employees, give them those better opportunities than I had when I was in school. I mean, and it's grown drastically, and you know, but I always look at it, there's still room for growth. We can still always improve, and it's good, it's great right now, but I still want to look at, we need to do it better, because I know we can.
I actually didn't even know what a school board was until I became the booster president at where my kids went to high school. And I was a booster president for about 3 years, and towards the end of my last year, a lot of the parents started asking me to run. And that's what what do you mean, run for the school board? Yes, I think you'll be good at it. And actually, I told them, no, I don't have the time for it. Oh, it's one meeting a month. Really? Okay. Yeah, you'll be great at it. We'll help you. We'll knock on doors for you. And so so I threw my hat in the race. And in that particular race, 3 other people threw it in there. So it was 4 of us. And I came this close by bowing out. Because I'm not going to win. Look at these. There's a doctor there. The guy's been there 2 terms. And then this guy's got a political, no, I'm not going to win. Forget it. No, you stay there. And that was the reason why I ran. And the other reason why I ran was for equity, to provide for the district, the needs and wants of the community and the schools. That's why I ran.
We're going to skip you, Dr. Carmen.
Did not I was encouraged by my spouse, by my wife, that she thought that I would be productive because of my background in education. Also, I saw the disparity in the various parts of the district. Community members and employees wanted a voice. Many were heard, many were not listened to. And basically, that was it.
I wanted to get back to the community, and what other better way to get back to the community to be a former teacher. So I decided to run for the school board. That's how I got involved.
Did they tell y'all the salary before you did this?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, just
Zero.
just checking. So, you know, you get twice your salary every year. They double it every year. So,
You know, it's interesting though that that is one of the things that I continually have to educate or re-educate almost every single person that I talk to in every single instance. They think that school board members are paid. They think that every time employees or school district raises are given, that the school board is included. As a matter of fact, Mr. Escobar could serve as a witness. I read a news article that was posted and said that the school board was included in receiving that raise. And sure, I guess so, because, you know, whatever percent of zero is still zero, so we could be included.
Yeah.
But, you know, and you know, luckily, they corrected the article, but it just amazes me that it was still posted like that, that a news media outlet does not know that the school board does not get paid.
And they probably corrected it, but in the last page or the last segment, right?
Well, they just took that portion of the sentence out, but they also didn't note, like on almost every article, there's a note that says, you know, this article has been corrected to show that whatever. There was no note added. They just took it off, and that was it.
So anyone who read it before
Yeah.
still believes that?
Anyone who read it before would
But-
believe that we got a raise this year.
that brings up the next question. So you very good segue. I appreciate that. So, what's the thing that surprised you the most as a board member? You ran, you know, and got elected, and then all of a sudden you're a board member, and you know, 3 or 4 meetings in, you're like, wow, really? What surprises you? Like, that was a great example that people think you get paid. Anybody?
I think the time and commitment, that dedication that you have to put in as being a board member. If you have a full-time, it's almost a full-time job. At the time, I was working full-time, and it was pretty challenging trying to make some of these meetings in the evening, because if you're working from 8 to 5, and some of these meetings are at 5:30, guess what? You got to hustle, run the house, change, and then make these meetings. And that was really challenging, at least for me. I just went part-time and partially retired, so I have all the time in the world now. But that was my biggest challenge, because the commitment that you had to put into being a board member, and for zero pay.
Pay aside, I think sometimes it is the belief that we can change something, or that we can encourage someone to do something outside of a very clearly published policy, you know, by picking up the phone and making a phone call. It's like, okay, but our policy says this, or in this situation, this is what applies, and, you know, yet the request continues. Well, you know, that can't be right. Some people, sometimes, the reality of the situation takes some time to sink in, and, you know, you just can't change it. I don't know, let's just call it a whim, because that policy, number one, is in place for a purpose, and if you change the policy, You know, you're not just changing it for this one situation. It may not even be relevant to this situation because the policy goes forward, right? But, you know, changing either policy or regulation or something, you know, there's laws behind it, there's, you know, reasons behind it, and you just can't make an exception suddenly because we don't like the particular outcome that we have to arrive to by following, you know, the very policy that we've put in place, and the difficulty in delivering that news.
I think for me, it was learning the role and responsibility of a board member. And against what I thought, against public perception, that a board member doesn't hire or fire the football coach. You know, that there is that difference between oversight and management and where we fit in that, you know, that, and also trying to understand and to get the community to understand that when your child and a teacher don't get along, you don't call the school board member. We have a chain of command in place for a reason. And now I take a great deal of pleasure in thinking, that's not my job. You know, because I can call Dr. Carvin and say, I need you to take care of this, you know, because that is his job. It's not the board's job. And so, but it was learning it. I've always thought that any new board member, very few completely understand what their role and what their responsibility is when they're elected. And it is a big eye-opening experience.
And we'll get to this in these conversations that we're going to continue having. But, you know, when you start thinking from the strategic level, it's a whole different point, right?
Exactly.
So instead of when you get hit up at Walmart about the color of the 7th grade girls' locker room, why they picked that color, you don't call the superintendent and say, why did we pick that color? The strategic question is, tell me the process of how we choose paint colors for our facilities. That's a strategic question, because really a lot of times you're going to find that if you ask it at the strategic level, you're going to get an answer that is also at the strategic level. You know, that's the free paint we got from the store, so that's the color we painted. That's our system. That's our policy. So, yeah, once you really get into that strategic role and realize that, you have the greatest influence at the strategic role. You're just not necessarily concerned about paint color.
Right.
Right? Who else?
Oh, you did? Oh, just adapting to the protocols and the structure of the board when I came on.
I mean, when somebody stands up, you just can't answer them back what you want to in the middle of the meeting. As a superintendent, I had a great attorney that held my hand, and she leaned over one time and she said, "Buck, this is a meeting in the public, not a meeting of the public." And so quit. Anyway, that was a long time ago. Who else?
I think it's just a continuous learning. The amount of time. I mean, and I'm blessed that I'm actually retired, but it's just like Mr. Mena said. It literally is almost a full-time job. But if you really want to do good, it's continuously learning what's in place, whether it be from our local governance to the state. I think that's what kind of caught me by. I knew the learning was going to be there, but not the vast amount that it entails.
I have one more. It's the,
He said just one.
It's okay.
is that there's two sides to every story. And as a board member, whenever you're presented with a problem from community or whatever, you're never going to get the whole story. And so it's figuring out the truth from this story and that story, and coming to the middle the best you can.
Yeah, never forget that in any situation, most people are not going to let facts get in the way of their story, right?
Right, right.
And some people speak very well, let me tell you, and they can present. They'll call you and they'll tell you the story, their story. And when I first became a board member, oh my God, really? and it actually upset me, and you get upset. But then you get the other version of it. Ah, okay, you're exactly
They didn't
right.
mention that part,
You
did they?
Exactly. So there's always two sides. You hit the nail right on the spot. Yep.
I think the other thing that still surprises me sometimes is the criticism that we get for the costs associated with state mandated training. You know, we're required as board members to attend to receive a certain number of hours on a yearly basis. And there's different opportunities, you know, on how to get that. Yes, some of it is local, but not all of it is. And so in order to get some of that training, you know, we do have to travel out of state. And I've traveled to conferences for my own work, and so I know, as a matter of fact, we've even conducted through my employer, have been in charge of helping support and organize some of those conferences. So you're aware of the fact that, okay, you know, this is the host location. These are the, you know, for whatever reason you decide to have agreements with the hotels where you have to stay at. Most of the time it's because there is transportation provided on a circuit, whatever. And so when you think about the price associated with that, some of that stuff is folded into it, you know, but when costs are reported, then, you know, there's criticism that comes with that because you don't stay at a Motel 6 or something like that. And why don't you? Because those hotels were not part of the hotels that you had to stay at when you're attending that conference, right? But I think that sometimes doesn't always, you know, get conveyed. And then, of course, there's always the alternative. Well, you could just have uneducated board members, you know, trying to be the strategic leaders and advocates for an educational institution. And so sometimes that still surprises me.
That's a good point, Michael, because I actually had somebody demand that we should pay for all that. And I correct them.
With our
You know what?
salaries.
You know, we are doing this for free. We don't get paid, first of all. If you think that I'm going to pay for all the airfare, hotel, I'm sorry, then you can run for the board. Shut him up like this. Once he found out that I was not paid, he looked around, he looked the other way and walked away. I guess he was thinking we were making six figures or something.
Yes.
Anybody else on that question? What surprised you the most? Not, I got one more question for you.
Shoot.
What do you want to get out of a strategic planning process? What are you after at the end of this?
I think, and I forgot his name, but
Greg,
People
Yeah.
do that all the time. It's fine.
Greg said at the very beginning, I don't remember where, but he said something about beginning with the end in mind. You know, and there's all the sayings, right? If you don't know where you're headed, then any road will do, all that kind of stuff, right? We do not have the liberty to just bounce around. We have to think, you know, for 2 years out, 5 years out, and as Mr. Morales says, 20 years out. You know, what we decide today carries outcomes that are that far out in the future. And so if we don't have a strategic plan in place, then it becomes, you know, one-off decisions. But if you have the strategic plan, we know where we're headed, we know what we want, where we want to be, and that can help guide us on the everyday decisions simply by thinking, does it align, yes or no? is it going to get us one step closer to where we want to be? And if it's truly if it's try saying that,
What was that?
truly strategic, it's a plan that evolves, but it's not going to change from one day to the next. It will evolve, but there's some consistency there.
For me, it's focus. I love policy because I like knowing what we can and what we can't do. I like it written out. And for our strategic direction, I want to know what our goals are, where we're heading, what we're working toward. That we reach these milestones as we go along. So it's focusing our efforts and our work. And I have a question that in the past, our strategic direction, our goals were aligned, our superintendent's evaluation were aligned with those. Would that be the same with our new strategic direction?
Yeah.
We would hope so.
Yeah, so one of the things that we want to try to eliminate, I should have said this as part of the start of it, is one clear set of directions. So there's not the board goals, superintendent
Right.
goals, superintendent appraisal, something else. We're trying to get one set of strategic direction.
Perfect.
So our
Thank you.
district and campus improvement plans will also align, right?
Correct.
In essence, this is the executive summary of your CIP and your DIP. But it's in-
Minus the compliance stuff.
Yeah,
The compliance stuff it just pre-populates now in. This is the aspirational pieces of your SIP and your DIP. Executive summary.
I think as we develop this plan, I just want to make sure that it doesn't sound or doesn't look or isn't written hypocritical, or it's more of do as I say, not as I do. So I want to make sure that we do have that follow through, and behind the scenes we're doing something else.
I don't know if you remember when the scorecard's up there, but the formula is we're going to move from X to Y by Z by this time period. And so, one of the things we're going to highly encourage is to put your X down. Wherever you are right now, put that down. Don't try to, one of the districts I worked in, I think everybody was shocked when in an open board meeting I said our SATs, ACT scores are atrocious. And we have, so you got to just be, if you're honest with it, and I love that word hypocritical, because if not, people they'll see through it.
Mm-hmm.
They'll see through it.
We try probably not to never oversell this, but it's because we want it to be just factual. But I can tell you, sir, if we do this the way we want to do it, I promise you it'll be genuine, and it'll be the work that this group deems important based on community input, and there will be follow-up every single month, and 4 years from now, we'll see where we are and we'll redo it.
Every Fortune 500 company has a strategic plan. Every one of them. And we need a strategic plan. We really do. What it says right here, tomorrow's leaders learning today, protecting our future. That should be our strategic plan. You just said it, SAT scores. That should be our goals. We have goals. We have a mission in life is to protect our future, which are our students. That should be our strategic plan, our goals. Everything else will follow, whether it be growth, whether it be funding, whether it be employment, and everything's going to fall in place. It's domino effect.
Dr. Carmen, you're playing again. You're back in the game.
You're in again.
We dealed you back
I'm
in.
looking forward to having a well-aligned plan with input from our community stakeholders, but with those measurable objectives along the way, so we can report out and we can show the progress we either are, hopefully, or are not making toward that end goal.
The second piece you said is just as important. If you're not, you have to be honest about it. Say, but we're doing this.
Obviously, it's got to be an update as to what's going on today and what the needs are, based on the needs and the responsibility to our students' academics, and how are we going to get there? I mean, you talk a big game, but how is it going to be done, and what steps are we going to need to put in place? That's simple.
Well, you mentioned earlier in the beginning, it's got to come from the superintendent, the team, and his senior team leaders. And you mentioned that at the beginning. And they're the know-how, and we're just going to follow them. And I think that's what's going to come down together. And we haven't done it since 2013. So we're going to reach that goal, and it's going to work out together as a team.
So two things I think you're ready to wrap up. I really firmly believe that what makes the strongest school districts in the nation right now is the frank two-way communication between the strategic role and the tactical role that is systematic, that is formal and systematic and part of our conversation. So that's part of what we're trying to build. And the very last comment, so the tactical team does have the expertise. If you think about the strategic role, always working on the system, the board should and does have its finger on the pulse of the community. We just have to make sure that, we're doing the right work, aligning to the right needs in the community. And then the next to last comment, I love that he said he wanted it to get to the how, because if you think about a strategic plan, it's what, and it's when, and it's how. So what are we trying to accomplish? When does it have to be accomplished by? And then how are we going to get there? That column 3 of key strategic actions is about the how. And that's kind of unique. Like, we're going to be clear about the how, and then we're going to measure how we're going to get there and make sure the board is aware.
What does Lloyd always say? An organization that cannot communicate within itself can definitely not communicate with its stakeholders, its community members, its customers. Can't communicate within the organization at an appropriate level, right? Then there's no way that you can communicate outside. And your stakeholders see, they see the reflection of communication within the organization.
So the most challenging statement, and we're going to end with this and then pass out your team trust, is that every organization is perfectly designed to get the results that it's getting. If you're not happy about the results that you're getting, you designed the plan or lack of plan to get you to those results. So what we've got to do is flip that over and perfectly design it to get the results that we need and that we want. That quote wasn't meant to make you feel warm and fuzzy, by the way. It always kind of hit me like right in the gut, like, oh, yeah, we're in charge. We can't really say like we're in charge. So let's get this thing designed to get a better result. All right, you ready to?
All right, yeah, let's go.
Dr. Reese will share your team trust results, but because of the hour, we might just share the results.
This one is, no, let me see here. You want me to pick mine?
Yeah.
Okay.
That'll work. I'm good with it. Are you guys doing it?
Are you okay if we take a quick break?
I'll tell you.
Quick break before, you're almost done.
We're going to do.
Oh, 3 minutes? Oh, then I think we're fine.
Yeah, we're good.
Yeah, sure, mine.
He said a deeper conversation. I'm just like,
This one here.
oh, okay. Okay.
Let's see here. Where that one's mine. Just one? Okay.
Oh, shoot, no. Just kidding.
Michael.
Dr. Reister would tabulate it, and we wanted you to have what you selected, but she's going to share the results for the whole 7, and then it will be 8 once we get to the last one. Fair enough? All right, so she's going to give you the results.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to go by each quadrant, and I'll just call out the letter and number. Okay, so starting with A1, 2 of you strongly agreed, 5 of you agreed. A2, 1 strongly agreed, 3 agreed, 1 no opinion, 2 disagree. A3, 5 of you agree, 1 no opinion, 1 disagree. A4, 4 of you agree, 2 no opinion, 1 disagree. A5, 7 of you agree. A6, 3 agree, 2 no opinion, 2 disagree. A7, 1 strongly agree, 2 agree, 2 no opinion, 2 disagree.
All right, does anybody need anything repeated, any of them? You got them? All right, excellent.
Okay, next quadrant, B. 1 strongly agree, and this is B1, sorry. 2 no opinion, 2 of you disagree, 2 strongly disagree. B2, 3 no opinion, 2 disagree, 2 strongly disagree. B3, 3 no opinion, 4 disagree. B4, 2 no opinion, 3 disagree, 2 strongly disagree. B5, 3 agree, 1 no opinion, 3 disagree. B6, 1 agree, 2 no opinion, 4 disagree. B7, 3 agree, 3 disagree, 1 strongly disagree.
Everybody good with B? Okay.
Okay, C. C1, 1 strongly agree, 5 agree, 1 disagree. C2, 1 strongly agree, 3 agree, 2 no opinion, 1 disagree. C3, 1 strongly agree, 4 agree, 1 no opinion, 1 disagree. C4, 4 agree, 2 no opinion, 1 disagree. C5, 4 agree, 2 no opinion, 1 disagree. C6, 4 agree, 1 no opinion, 1 disagree, 1 strongly disagree. C7, 2 agree, 2 no opinion, 2 disagree, 1 strongly disagree. Any questions? Do I need to repeat any of them? Okay, last quadrant, D. D1, 1 strongly agree, 5 agree, 1 no opinion. D2, 2 strongly agree, 3 agree, 1 no opinion, 1 disagree. D3, 1 strongly agree, 3 agree, 2 no opinion, 1 strongly disagree. D4, 2 strongly agree, 5 agree. D5, 3 agree, 1 no opinion, 3 disagree. D6, 7 agree. D7, 2 agree, 3 no opinion, 2 disagree.
So what we're, thank you, Dr. Reesterwood. So Dr. Duran tabulated the good governance, and on our next trip here, we'll do those because of the hour tonight and potential conflicting other events that are rising in importance. I think it's best if we don't dig into those. Also, Dr. Duran and Dr. Reesterwood, just so everybody knows, tomorrow, the SWOT and the responses to your question, we're calibrating with the senior leader team, so that's part of tomorrow's exercise that they'll help us. It's not that they don't trust Buck and I, but it's always good to have another couple sets of ears.
They don't trust us.
Yeah. So, you, at least a couple of you during the SWOT self-identified divisiveness as one of either your weaknesses and or opportunities. Is that right? And I heard that right earlier? Okay. So the purpose of this exercise is to not just say that in a broad generality, but get specific, like in 4 different areas. And this is based on Ken Blanchard's classic work of, ABC's or TrustWorks. So it's like a 30-year history of this guiding organizations. So really, tonight is, those results are what they are. We quantified something that's largely kind of like a feeling, but the commitment here, I guess, for the next time that we come is to just it not be Pablo or Eduardo or Cynthia, but it's just our team, and the numbers are just the numbers, and what are we going to do to go to work about them? What are we going to do to go to work on them? And someone said this earlier, and I forgot which one of you said it, but if we're going to ask the superintendent to lead a senior leader team that leads other teams in a continuous improvement environment over the next 4 years, then the absolute best way to model that is to start with this and model that we can work on this, we can make this better, we'll take it again. In a few months, we'll see where we are. We'll work on it, we'll work on it, we'll work on it, we'll take it again. And we'll see, because what you're trying to establish is, can we get 3 data points in the right trend line headed the right direction, right? Like, so can we make the next one better, and then the next one better, and the next one better? My hope is that in Socorro ISD in a couple of years, this is all 7-0, strongly agree, and Dr. Carmen's trying to convince us to make another team trust self-analysis, because you guys have maxed it out.
Anybody have any questions or comments before we wrap it up? I said this earlier, and we'll talk with your community group tomorrow a little about this as well, where your name came from, trustee. We're gonna spend some time on that with the group tomorrow, but you are the soul of this community, and they probably didn't tell you that when you ran for the board, right? But here you are. So we appreciate you inviting us into your home. We appreciate you working with us, and we look forward to the rest of our time here. So thank you.
Thank you all very much.
Any questions from any? Okay, if there's no questions, I adjourn this meeting. The time is 7:22. Meeting adjourned.
Back to the second quarter.